Hello friends, welcome back. So in this class, we're continuing with our writing practice part. So in the previous class, I had told you that when we're doing writing practice, start with simple questions first, move on to the more difficult and then technical ones. You just start reading technical questions, you will suddenly not be able to remember anything at all, because that is how ICSI has designed the paper. They've designed it to confuse you a little bit. And when your preparation is going on, if you suddenly start working only on the technical questions, you will miss out on these questions also. So what I want you to do is, as the first step, choose questions which are simple, which is what I'm going to be doing in this class. We're going to try writing these answers, you and me both. Then while you're writing the initial questions, you can even look at your textbook and write the answers. Now admittedly, over here, take out the question. If you don't know the answer at all, take out your textbook, study the answer, and then try writing in your own words. Either look at the textbook and write it down as an answer as the first few questions. After you have practice of writing, like let's say 5 to 10 questions that way, then you should close your textbook and you should try writing in your own words. Now, if you don't know the answer, look at the question, study the answer, and then try writing it. Because remember, here you're only trying to get writing practice. By the time you do this for, let's say, good 15 to 20 days of daily writing practice, you should now progress onto the stage where you're like, okay, the minute I see a question, whatever I can remember in my head, I'm going to try and write that down as an answer. Write that down as an answer and then check whether your answer is matching your textbook answer. This is how you should progress slowly with writing, and do this for all your subjects, not only for your ECIPL. Okay. Now for this writing practice, I'm going to choose some simple questions over here. Let me identify what those are. The first one will be this: what advantages will Innovatech have as a patentee? What are the criteria for patentability? We'll take a look at this also. And then I'm going to come down to question number 6, actually 6A. If you look at question number 6A, we hadn't gone through these questions earlier, but we're going to take a look at some simple question, but which is there for 5 marks. Okay. And I'm going to take this question over here: discuss the scope of intellectual property as per intellectual property rights. So let's start with question number 1. Question number 1 is to do with the case based question, so we'll refer to it. Okay. Now, the case, we had done a discussion in the previous class about it. So, let me just recap the facts over here. A patent was granted in 2018. A modification was made to the patent in 2020. By 2023, the company had not paid the renewal fee. Meanwhile, another company, Elixir Biocare, had come forward and applied for a compulsory license. Then, when the company didn't pay the renewal fee in 2024, they went and tried to get it restored, restoration of a lapsed patent. Okay, and the question was, what advantages does the patentee, that is Innovatech Private Limited, Pharma Private Limited, have as a patentee under the Patents Act of under the Patents Act? So let's write this down. I'm just going to write, what are the advantages of a patentee under the act? Okay, all of you all take out your I don't know, don't take out your mobile phone, preferably if you have an alarm clock or a watch. Sit down and start timing yourself. If you want to go ahead and read through the answer first, like if you want to take out the guideline answers and just take a good look at the answer over here itself. Okay, read it, understand it, and then set your timer. Now set your timer for 8.5 minutes, maximum 9 minutes. Okay. Now, once you start writing, check how much time you're actually taking to write. So, I will also be writing this answer with you. Once you have finished writing the answer, I would like you to come back and check the answer against what is the guideline answer and also what I have written over here. Fine. So, let's start. The timing for me is 5:35 p.m. now. So, by 5:44 p.m., I should have finished this answer. Okay. So, let's start. Okay, friends, so I have finished writing my answer. Okay, and the time is 5:39. So that means I have taken my time taken for this particular answer is 4 minutes time. Okay, I want you to time it over here like this. Now, some of you might still be writing your answer, so finish writing the answer and come back to the rest of this to the rest of this video. But look what we have done. I've taken a question and I've tried to write it down. Now, admittedly, we have good knowledge of this answer, but then this answer is a very general answer. And at the point of your examination, what will you be doing? You'll be sitting and thinking, should I write this? Should I not write that? And then suddenly your answer will become longer and longer and longer. Now, look what I have done. I have given an introduction. This is the first part of your question that has to be there in any answer that you write. I'm not talking only about ECIPL. I'm talking about CMSL, your company law, your jurisprudence. If you go into professional levels, then you please write introductions there also. Now, look at the nature of the introduction. It wasn't anything too complicated. I have given the name of the company because it's related to the facts of the case. Now, if this is not mentioned over here, then I'll simply write the patentee. The patentee will have the following advantages under the Patents Act of 1970. One more thing, write the name of the full law. Write the name of the full law. Many people just write Patents Act. You have to write Patents Act of 1970. Okay. And if you don't remember which year it is, then you try leaving it out, but don't write any wrong answers over here. Next part of my answer, notice what is happening. I have put it down into bullet points. But in my bullet points, I've not just given two words per bullet point. I've given a full sentence over here. Now I could simply write something like instead of writing the patentee has exclusive rights to commercially exploit his creation, some students will simply just go and write commercially exploit. Commercially exploit what? You have to give a full sentence. You have to use words like the patentee. Okay, use keywords and then write it in your own words. But while writing in your own words, don't forget to mention the keywords. Now some people will write only commercially exploit, or they will simply write right to authorize, or right to exclude, or the right to sue. Now admittedly you might have done that because you might have made bullet points for easier remembering in your notes and things like that, which is okay. It's good for studying, but for writing your answer you can't write such short words. You have to explain it. Okay, so I hope you're getting a good criteria of what a direct question is. Let's take one more question, and here I'm going to go to the sixth question, okay, because that's a little bit more direct. We're going to understand what is the scope of intellectual property as per intellectual property rights. So we have our next question. What is the scope of, I'm just going to write IPR. What is it? IP as per IP rights. What is the scope of IP as per IP rights? Now, friends, I'll tell you one thing about this. This is a full 5 marks. Okay, and it's a extremely general question. How much ever you've studied this chapter, or how many ever notes that you've created, you might not be ready for this scope of IP as per IP rights. Now, my biggest problem is how do I write this answer? Or writing the answer is not a problem. So, before we start writing this answer, I want to bring your attention to two things. Okay. One is that many people will simply look at the question and they'll be like, oh my god, 5 marks, it's the last question in the entire paper. Let me do one thing, let me skip the whole thing. So, what will some students do? They'll skip the whole thing. The second criteria, the people who are like, okay, it seems like an easy question, you will start writing in your own words. In your own words, which is fine, which is what I want you to do, because we might not remember the exact topic as per your textbook. And I'm going to show you where this topic is there in your textbook also, so that when you're doing your revisions, you know what you have to watch out for. But ideally, in questions like this, there is an expectation that you have to write it in your own words. I'm going to show you both the guideline answer and the textbook, and I'll show you how impractical it is also for you to be able to give the exact answer for this. if you look at your guideline answer for this question 6A4, they've given like the answer in the sense like they've given a very general answer over here, okay? And I'd like you to take out your textbook, take out chapter number 12, because this question comes from chapter number 12 only. Now come down, you have your introduction. Now ideally whenever we study anything in our CS textbooks, we always skip the introduction, or some entu cutlets will read the introduction, but that's all we do, we leave it at reading. Do you sit and mug up each and every sentence? The answer is no. Then come down, you have all of this: nature of IP, scope of intellectual property. Now take a look at this answer, okay? And take a look at this answer that is given in your guideline answers. It's a copy paste. All right? And are we capable of remembering something like this for our answers? The answer is no. I'm not going to remember this. If I was given this textbook and I was given the exact same question, I will definitely not even remember which chapter it was from. Right? Now, in situations like this, I can't write the exact answer. I can't give this exact answer to them. So then I should know how to critically think and write in my own words. But before we start writing in our own words, I want to bring to your attention that when we take a look at our textbook also, don't just skip these topics as saying, it's too general, I'm not going to study it. Mark out certain points over here. Now, what I want you to do with me over here is I want you to take this answer and I want you to help write this answer with me in our own words. So let's read it. They're talking about IP rights being very wide. And there are two methods of classifying IP, either as copyright or as industrial property. Patents, trademarks, trade names, biodiversity, plant breeding rights, and other commercial interests are all industrial properties. Whereas novel creation, copyright protects the expression of ideas which are distinct from patents, but not does not grant you the sole right to an idea. In addition to scientific and technological works, copyrights also protect art and literature. And then they're going on to explain copyright protection. But we are being asked a question that is in general relating to what is the scope of intellectual property as per intellectual property rights. Now, I want you to try and write this in your own words. I might be wrong in my answer, but the objective of getting you to practice this over here is not to get the perfect answer. It's to get you to have the ability to write it in your answer sheets. Okay, so we are not going to ever skip. If you are my student and if you are watching my videos, you should never be in a situation where you're required to skip an answer. Any one of you come and tell me, ma'am, I actually didn't have time to finish the question paper. Ma'am, actually, I knew the answer, but I could not write it. None of you can fall under this category because with proper planning, with proper revisions, you will be able to finish it within the 3 hours time. So now let's figure out how we can write this in our own words. So friends, my start time right now is actually 5:50 p.m. Okay, so it's going to turn 5:50 in exactly 1 minute, and we are going to write the answer. And don't just copy my answer. Okay, just because I'm writing something over here, don't copy me. Just pause the video or let the following 8 minutes run by, and I want you to write the answer, and then we're going to discuss it after this. All right, let's start. Okay, friends, so I've finished writing my answer. So my start time was 5:50 p.m. Okay, and I have taken 6 minutes to write my full answer. Okay, so I'll tell you my biggest problem with this answer was I had no idea what to write. In terms of scope of IP, it's a very general answer. And so what I've tried limiting myself to is limiting myself to understanding the very basics of intellectual property. Now, I have written this particular answer over here, and I've gone ahead to say that yes, the scope of intellectual property, but look how I've written one thing over here. I've written intellectual property, and then in brackets, I've written IP. Okay, I've written IP. Many people just write short forms. They're like the scope of IP is to identify so and so. How does your examiner know what IP is unless you tell him what it is? So what we normally do is when we're writing answers, it's not easy to keep writing intellectual property again and again and again. So instead, what we do is we write it one time, and then in brackets we write IP. Then notice how over here I've put it in brackets, but the next time I've used this word, I've just used the word IP over here. I've not written intellectual property. This is a correct way of using short forms. Otherwise, don't just simply write short forms for the sake of writing short forms. Okay. Now, I've gone ahead to write, the scope of IP is to identify the creator and grant him certain rights in the form of commercial exploitation. It can be divided into industrial protection and creative protection. And then we've identified the different kinds of intellectual property that he has. Now, what I would like you to do is I would like you to underline whatever you want the examiner to see. I want you to underline every single thing because you are writing a lot of content. Your examiner is focused on the keywords. Why don't you take his attention to where you want him to see it? Now, especially for a general answer like this, where there are no section numbers, there are no case laws, there's no conclusions, etc. It's a very generalized answer. You have to take the attention of the examiner by either using points like this, or you have to underline what you want them to see. Like I've also mentioned over here, the term of protection. It varies from 10 to 20 years for patent and GI and trademarks and all of that. Whereas for copyright, it is 60 years after the lifetime of the author. So that is another scope. Then we also know the one scope is that they are allowed to obtain remedies before the court of law. Now, this particular answer, tell me, is it similar to my guideline answer? It's not exactly the same, but please try to understand this is a very general answer. I cannot go and mug up my textbook and go and copy it into the answer paper. ICSI does not expect you to do that. They want you to have understood the concept to be able to write in your own words. And that is what you should try to do. Now, please understand that this being a general answer question requires a general answer. But let's say they have something a little bit more specific. Okay. Now let's take out the next question that we're going to be doing in this class, and that is this question number 2. Explain the provisions of revocation of patents by controller for non-working of patents as per section 85 of the Patents Act of 1970. I'd like all of you all to take this up. Okay. I want you to try taking, if you're aware of the answer, we can start writing the answer. But if you're not aware of the answer, pause the video right here, go to the textbook, take out the answer, and try to study it. Now, this is the guideline answer, so we have the guideline with us, and I'm just going to take that out for the people who want to understand this. Now, friends, I'm not going to be looking at the answer over here. First, let's try to write the answer, and then we'll try and compare to how close it is to our answers. Are we writing everything? Are all our keywords present in the answers that we are writing in our own words? Because, friends, whoever's trying to mug up this answer and go and copy it into your answer paper, I can guarantee you right now itself that you're going to fail your exams. Because nobody can mug up 500 to 800 pages of any textbook and go write your answers. Okay, we're going to have to learn to, we have to memorize a few things. We are also going to have to learn to answer it based on the best of our ability. So, I'm not going to look at the answer over here. I'm just going to start writing the answer. So, I'm not going to write the full question over here actually. Provision of revocation of patents by controller for non-working. So, question is regarding revocation of patents by the controller for non-working. I'm not writing the full question as it is. Just take it as this thing. Okay, so let's start. Now, friends, my time. My time of starting the answer is 6:02 p.m. Okay, for those of you who want to go through the provision first, study it and then write the answer, please go ahead and do that. But I'm going to start writing the answer. Okay. What's the question? Okay, friends, so I have finished writing my answer. So my start time was 6:02. My start time was 6:02 p.m. and then I finished by 6:08 p.m., which means I took around 6 minutes to write this answer. Okay. For those of you who've not finished writing, it's okay, but I'm going to go ahead and analyze our answer itself. So let's look at it. Always, whenever you're starting out the answer, always specify the provision. So over here, you are making an application for the non-working of a compulsory license only. So section number 85 prescribes the power of the controller to revoke a compulsory license for non-working. Okay, let's take a look at our guideline answers. So yes, 85, revocation of patents for non-working in respect of where a compulsory license has been granted. Um, any person may, after the expiration of 2 years from the date of granting the order, apply to the controller for an order revoking the patent that has not been worked in the territory of India, reasonable requirements of the public have not been met, or it's not available at a reasonably affordable price. Now, every application should contain the specific particulars. The controller, if satisfied that all the above conditions are not met, then he may make an order revoking the patent. The controller has been put under an obligation to decide such application within 1 year of presentation. Now let's see what is lacking in my answer and what is required as per the guideline answers. Now over here I've written an application should be made to the controller. Look at where I've gone wrong. I've not mentioned who should make the application. Who should make the application? This is the first thing that's missing from my answer. Now, look at the guideline answers. It clearly says that the central government or any person interested may. This is my first drawback of the answer, correct? Okay. Then I mentioned an application should be made specifying that the compulsory license should be revoked on the following grounds. Non working for 2 years after grant of license, that is mentioned. Reasonable requirements of public have not been met. This is also fine. Patent is not available at reasonable prices to the public. Yes. Then the controller should assess the application. One more thing that is missing over here is I have not mentioned the what should be the contents of the application. Now, here in this question, they've clearly said mention all the facts, mention whatever is the necessary points to be mentioned, and then you write. But in many answers in like other parts of your textbook, already gives you what the contents of the application should be. So if such a thing exists, then you should write down what the contents of that application are. So this is the next thing that we have missed out on. What are the contents that should be there? Then after that, I've mentioned that the controller should assess the application and call for any additional information as is required. And then if the controller is satisfied that the compulsory license is not made available at reasonable prices, worked in the territory of India, etc., then he may revoke the compulsory license. But one more thing we forgot to mention. Okay, we forgot to mention the timeline within which the controller should give the final order. Okay, and that is 1 year. So 1 year from the date of making the application, he should give his final order. So look at the three things that are missing. Who should make the application, contents of the application, and then the timeline within which it should be given. These are the technical parts that we tend to forget when we are studying generally. But these are the little details that ICSI also expects. So yes, I've written a very good answer, but I've missed few points which are capable of getting my marks for me. I can make this answer very short and I can give all the necessary points and I'll still get full marks for this question. Okay, so friends, we've done writing practice for 3 questions out of this part B. Most of 2 of them relate to, actually all of them. One is a general question. One is what are the advantages of the patentee? So again, relating to patent law. Then we've studied a general question, that is scope of IP under IPR. That chapter, just make your points over there and learn how to write it in your own words, because there's largely no other way to really attempt that chapter. And then finally, we have the question that is your revocation of patent. So we've basically looked at 2 questions relating to patent law. Look how I've written it over here, my start time and my end time. Okay, now I have written very short answers over here. Okay, I've written very short answers over here. Now, this is sufficient because it gives all the necessary answers for it. But remember, friends, maximum time that you can give per answer is only going to be 8.5 minutes, give or take. So, if I've used up 6 minutes over here, those remaining 2 minutes will either go into thinking about the answer or it will support my other questions which are big enough. And come back to your question paper itself. I told you that when you're being asked questions in part B, like look at how much they're making you read. This is a very short comprehension. Sometimes this can go very long also. So you have to give at least like 5 minutes time to analyze all of that and read this part. Now, there's a 15-minute reading time that is given to you before each paper. I want you to utilize that 15 minutes for reading this aspect of your question so that you don't waste it when you're writing your answers. Okay. Now, what else have we understood from this? That each question is different, each question has different marking. One is 2 marks, one is only 1 mark, and then there are others which are 5 marks. Now, wherever there are 5 marks, you have to write more, but just because you're writing more doesn't mean that it should not have the answer in it. Just because they've asked you what is the scope of IP, you don't start writing only about trademark. So in that sense, it should have both content and volume, and wherever it is lesser number of marks, be direct. Yes, no, this is it, this is that, section numbers wherever required. Because if you've written your section numbers, then there is no reason to remove the marks for you. But if you don't write what section numbers, case laws, or the keywords, then even if you write 10 pages for one particular question, you will still get 0 marks. Okay, something to keep in mind. Okay, friends, so with this class we'll come to an end of our writing practice. In the next few classes, we'll also be doing some additional writing practices. Let's take up chapter wise. I'll be writing some answers with you. Okay, and in some other cases, we'll be analyzing other, like the old question papers, guideline answers, etc. And I shall see you guys in the next class.